says that she and others in her creative writing class barricaded themselves in the classroom during that rampage. And hiding from the gunshots was actually history repeating itself. Listen to this. For one family in Florida, student Carly Novell tweeting, quote, "This is my grandpa when he was 12 years old. He hid in a closet while his family was murdered during the first mass shooting in America. Almost 70 years later, I also hid in a closet from a murderer. These events should not be repetitive. Something has to change." A Novell referring to the 1949 mass shooting when a lone gunman shot and killed 13 people in New Jersey. And that gives you chills. Well, that wraps up this hour of Fox and Friends First. But Fox and Friends First continues right now. I'll see you back here later. Have a great weekend.
It is Friday, February 16th. A Fox News alert. The demons made him do it. The Florida massacre suspect claiming the voices in his head made him carry out that deadly ambush. His first court appearance as President Trump prepares to visit with the victims.
Our entire nation, with one heavy heart, is praying for the victims and their families.
The new approach the White House is now taking to keep schools safe. And was the FBI warned about his disturbing plot 5 months ago? Fox and Friends First continues right now. You are watching Fox and Friends First on this Friday morning. I'm Jillian Mealy.
Good morning to you, Jillian. I'm Rob Schmidt here live in Parkland, Florida, right outside Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School here, the scene of this horrific crime this week. And just about a day and a half later, we're getting a much clearer picture of the person who carried out this crime, this young man, Nikolas Cruz, a young man with an obsession with guns, with violence, who boasted about killing animals, and who says that he committed this crime, told police he committed this crime and had demons in his head telling him to do so. A young man whose adoptive mother died just this past fall, who was expelled from high school here last year, about a year ago, and just 3 days later bought an AR-15, the rifle that he used to commit this horrible crime. We are also getting an outline of exactly how this all went down, a timeline, I should say, of how this happened on Wednesday, on Valentine's Day, when this horrific act took place. And it was a pretty fast-moving event as it went down. 2:06, the young man in the afternoon, 2 o'clock, 2:06 in the afternoon, he gets an Uber to the school. At 2:21, he enters into the east stairwell of one of the buildings here. Not sure how he got access into the building, how he was able to get in, but we'll analyze that a little bit later on. Gets into the building, 2:21. Gets ready, prepares himself, walks out, and shoots into classrooms on the first and second floor for less than 5 minutes. Only about 3 or 4 minutes is all the longer that this shooting lasted. And he was able to kill 17 people and put more than a dozen others into the hospital in just that short period of time. And then he moves up to the third floor of the building. He drops the gun, walks back down the stairs, and runs out of this high school among all of the other students who are in a panic trying to get away from the bullets as the fire alarm is going off, as the shooting is happening. By 2:20, or by 2:50, I should say, he gets to a Walmart, which is right near campus. He hangs out there. He gets a soda from the Subway at the Walmart. And then at 3:01, he gets to a McDonald's nearby there. And by 3:41, he is found by a police officer in a neighborhood right here near the school. He is arrested there without incident. And we go to his first appearance in court, which happened yesterday afternoon. And we see a cowering and a nervous 19-year-old kid standing there, which was just shocking to see him being consoled by his attorney after committing such a heinous crime. A young man charged with 17 counts of premeditated murder at this point, and his attorney actually showing some compassion for him.
He's a broken human being. He's a broken child. The sadness that this community is feeling, I mean, my children are, they go to school in this community. I feel horrible for these families, and Mr. Cruz feels that pain.
Well, it certainly is just a terrible, a horrendous crime that this young man is charged with. We also know that the FBI had a warning about this through a YouTube comment that was allegedly left by this young man months ago, saying that he was a school shooter in training, and also a lot of questions about what the school knew here. Obviously, this young man was not allowed on campus with a backpack. He was deemed such a threat. He had been expelled from here. How did he get into the school? How was that stairwell not locked up? These schools are supposed to be fortresses. You're not supposed to be able to just walk into a school anymore. A lot of questions remain to be answered. Jillian, I'll send it back to you.
So many questions. That's right, Rob. Thank you. President Trump planning to visit Florida as soon as the weekend after addressing the nation in a powerful speech offering his support to all Americans.
Our entire nation, with one heavy heart, is praying for the victims and their families. I want you to know that you are never alone and you never will be. You have people who care about you, who love you, and who will do anything at all to protect you.
The president also saying he's committed to helping secure our schools and tackle the difficult issue of mental health. Just take a look at these faces. A football coach, a janitor, a freshman soccer player, and 14 others. We are now getting our first look at the faces of the victims of that horrific shooting. Marianne Rafferty joins us live in Los Angeles with some of the heartbreaking reaction and stories of heroism. Marianne.
Good morning, Jillian. Family, friends, and survivors gathering last night for an emotional vigil honoring the young lives lost, many of them in their early teens. All 17 now identified. They were athletes, dancers, members of the marching band, and volunteers. A teacher, the school's athletic director, and a football coach, all killed and hailed as heroes, protecting students from gunfire. The brother of Coach Aaron Feist struggling with the loss, as so many loved ones are.
Just, you know, that he was a good man, that he loved people. You know, he loved the kids that he worked for at the school, and that he wasn't afraid, you know, to protect and to lay it down.
The community coming together at last night's vigil, attempting to shine light during the darkest of days.
Some of my friends won't get to see their brothers and sisters ever again. It was one of the worst days of my life. The worst day.
One of the victims' dads somehow finding the strength to address the crowd.
I don't remember if I said that to Jamie yesterday. What is unfathomable is Jamie took a bullet and is dead. I don't know what I do next. My wife is home. We are broken.
An unimaginable scenario for any parent. That tragic reality now facing 17 families. Another dozen or so others are still recovering after Wednesday's massacre. Jillian?
So sad. Marianne Rafferty, thank you. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi says Congress is complicit in the nation's gun violence. The California Congresswoman accusing Republicans of refusing to pass tougher gun laws just a day after the Florida school shooting.
It's an assault on our whole country, and they are paying the price for our inaction. Whose political survival in this body is more important than the survival of our children? Who of us in here is more important? Whose political survival is more important than that? Nobody's.
Pelosi now calling on House Speaker Paul Ryan to consider legislation that would expand background checks and create a special committee to address gun violence. Responding to Nancy Pelosi and her Democratic colleagues, former LAPD detective Mark Furman says there's a better approach. He says in this day and age, school security should be among the top priorities for districts across America.
I just think that there's a better approach. When you have retired personnel, they have the best part of their career behind them, and you need a generational gap that isn't 2 or 3 generations, perhaps just the better part of one. These officers on the school need to be able to interact with these students and get that information that a guy like Cruz would have surfaced and they would have actually confided in the officer. You need to get some kind of a system where you have protocols for all these schools so everybody is working off the same sheet of music, and you need to harden the inside target so the suspect can't get in, and you create the tactical situation for a shooter on the outside, which allows responding officers and the security officers to take out the suspect with no danger to the students. I think this is all possible without gun control.
Taking advantage of the Parkland shooting victims will not be tolerated. That stern warning from Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi.
If you think you're going to scam people during this tragedy, you're not. GoFundMe, they're monitoring every site that's popping up, and no money will be dispersed under GoFundMe until they know it's legitimate.
A legitimate campaign from the Broward Education Fund has raised more than $600,000 in just 13 hours. Attorney General Jeff Sessions vowing to step up federal gun prosecution in the wake of Wednesday's shooting.
I think effective enforcement of our gun laws, focusing on criminals and dangerous people, can reduce violence in our communities and improve public safety. We can and we must do better.
Sessions also promising to work with the mental health profession to assist in those efforts. The Justice Department, meantime, reporting a 23% increase in federal gun charges under the new administration. Mitt Romney expected to announce his run for Senate today. The former Massachusetts governor and 2012 Republican nominee for president expected to chase the Utah seat left open by the retiring Orrin Hatch. Romney, who has been critical of President Trump, previously planned an announcement for yesterday, but rescheduled after that shooting in Florida. It is 10 minutes after the hour. The shooter's shocking Instagram post detailing a twisted obsession for guns, violence, and even hurting animals. Dr. Michael Baden, a forensic pathologist, is here next to delve deeper into the role social media will play in determining why he did it. Applause for a cold-blooded killer. The disgusting video showing inmates cheering on a cop killer. And senators on both sides calling out President Trump after hitting a wall on immigration.
The only way I see a solution is for the president to grab the reins back.
There's only one reason why the Senate will be unable to reach a bipartisan solution to DACA: President Trump.
The blistering response from the White House. We are live in Washington. Investigators now pouring through the Parkland shooter's social media footprint, trying to learn everything about him. What clues are they looking for, and how will this investigation help stop future attacks? Joining me now is forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden. Thank you for being here this morning. Tough circumstances for sure. We were just talking in the break about how important it is to begin that he's alive, that he was that this police officer, this hero police officer, was able to take him into custody without incident.
He should be given an awful lot of credit for taking him into custody alive, because that happens very rarely. Most mass shooters get shot or kill themselves, and they're going to be able to study him, to talk to him. He seems to be willing to talk, to find out which of the many red flags are most important, because the FBI gets deluged with tips. Which tips are most important, how it happened. They also will be determining whether or not he acted alone, whether there was anybody else. And they'll do that in part talking to him, and in part going over the DNA with fingerprints and DNA over the gun, the ammunition, the cartridges, and everything that was in his backpack that would have clues. So they will check out everything that he says.
Now, let's talk about his online footprint right now, specifically the YouTube comment that he made talking about, and he even said and used his real name in this post, and you can see right there, it says, "I'm going to be a professional school shooter." Yesterday, the FBI addressed this. There have been a lot of questions about this. As you know, people are very angry about this. And the FBI claims there wasn't enough information to connect the online Nikolas Cruz to the real-life human being. I don't understand. Can you help us?
Well, I would think that the FBI is going back into that area and to see if there is any way they could have tracked him down. The problem is they get so many clues, there are only so many they can track down. There are a lot of people who make stupid comments most people don't act on them.
Right, but, and forgive me for interrupting, you look at that comment, you look at the posts he had on his Instagram, on his other social media accounts, pictures of guns, of knives, of dead animals. What are we missing?
Well, it's said that at 18 you're able to buy long guns, but you're still not able to buy handguns. And the photographs of his array of weapons, he has some handguns. So there's a whole issue there of how he collected the guns, whom he purchased them from. The sadness is, with all these stories about mental problems, he had never been adjudged to be mentally ill in a way that would affect his purchasing weapons. But the whole area of why 18-year-olds should be able to buy assault weapons is going to be addressed.
What is law enforcement doing right now?
Law enforcement the police don't want, the police I know that I've worked with, they don't want people to be able to easily get guns. There's now a real divide between National Rifle Association and the rest of society as to what strictures, if any, should be placed upon people buying weapons. And this is brought it out again, and maybe this time, since he's alive, since they can get more information for him, they'll be able to work out something in that direction.
Well, this is a debate that is unfortunately going to continue in the days to come, the weeks to come. We thank you for being with us this morning.
And I hope
really
I don't have to come back for a similar situation in the near future.
We hope that as well. Thank you,
Thank you.
Doctor. The YouTuber who alerted the FBI about a possible suspect months before the shooting, now breaking his silence.
It was disturbing that somebody would write something like that, but I never would have thought that they meant it.
How he says the feds reacted to his warning. And the immigration debate hits a wall in the Senate. What the president has to say about where we go from here. We are live in Washington. Griff Jenkins joins us next. Good morning and welcome back. A bipartisan immigration plan fails in the Senate after President Trump threatens to veto it. DHS even slamming it, saying it destroys their ability to remove illegal immigrants from the country. But the House is moving forward with their hardline bill. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington, D.C. with a look at what's happening. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Jillian. They are your Cleveland Browns of the federal government. The Senate going 0-4 to pass anything to protect Dreamers and strengthen border security, including the bipartisan bill that had the support of 8 Republicans. But the president called a total catastrophe, threatening a veto. The White House placing blame on the Democrats, saying today the Schumer Democrats in the Senate demonstrated again that they are not serious about DACA. They are not serious about immigration reform, and they are not serious about Homeland Security. Continuing, they say, yet the Schumer Democrats chose to filibuster it because they are held hostage by the radical left in their party, which opposes any immigration control at all. But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says the president is the one to blame.
I regret that the only bipartisan effort of the group of moderate senators to come up with a bipartisan compromise couldn't get the necessary 60 votes. There's only one reason why the Senate will be unable to reach a bipartisan solution to DACA: President Trump.
3 Democrats crossed the aisle on the Grassley bill, which most closely aligned with the president's 4 pillars, but it also received the most votes against it. Senator Graham now says the ball is in the president's corner.
The only way I see a solution is for the president to grab the reins back and lead himself and get Democrats and Republicans in a room focusing on strong border security and a fair solution for DACA. Get that done, then move to comprehensive.
Now, the House will take the next crack at it with the most conservative bill yet on the deck, but lawmakers in recess now until February 26th, and that March 5th deadline for Dreamers is fast approaching, Jillian.
That was a cheap shot at the Browns fans there, Griff.
It's true. They're
it
winless.
Is true. I know. One day they will win a couple of games, and they will be very excited. Thanks, Griff. So remember The View co-host Joy Behar attacking Vice President Mike Pence's faith?
It's one thing to talk to Jesus. It's another thing when Jesus talks to you. Exactly. That's called mental illness.
Well, now she's addressing those outrageous comments, noting that she is a Christian, too.
I gave money to the church.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I actually help Christians with my pocketbook.
The conservative voice of The View, Meghan McCain, chiming in her frustration only to be cut off. Listen.
I feel like sometimes liberals say we need to be tolerant of everyone, we need to be tolerant of everyone, except pro-lifers, except Trump supporters.
I'm going to stop you because that's not actually true.
McCain continued to say the women on the show owe the vice president and his family an apology. What would the women from The View think of this? Oprah says she's not running in 2020 because God didn't tell her to.
Never looked outside for other people to tell me when I should be making a move. And wouldn't I know? Because if God actually wanted me to run, wouldn't God kind of tell me? And I haven't heard that.
Oprah claiming in an interview with 60 Minutes that she had a lot of wealthy men offer to run her presidential campaign. But while she feels a responsibility to use her voice to promote justice in the world, she says politics isn't in her DNA. It is 26 minutes after the hour. Applause for a cold-blooded killer. The disgusting video showing inmates cheering on the man suspected of murdering a police officer. Democrats demanding more gun control just hours after the Florida shooting rampage.
But as a consequence of our inaction, we are responsible.
There will be a moment of silence, then the Congress of the United States will do absolutely nothing.
Our next guest, an NRA commentator, makes the case for more guns in the hands of the right people. Stay right there.
And welcome back. We are here in Parkland, Florida, right outside of the high school where this horrific shooting happened earlier this week. And we have learned, of course, now that this clearly disturbed 19-year-old young man that committed this terrible act was able to legally buy this AR-15, this semi-automatic rifle that was used to kill 17 people inside of this school just about 40 hours ago. And the question becomes, what do we do to prevent these types of things? And we're going to go now to NRA commentator Antonia Okafor with her reaction to this. Antonia, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I want to start with a Democratic senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy, said this week that these types of shootings, these types of killings only happen here in the United States. And he points to our love of guns in this country as the reason. I want to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. First, my condolences to the victims' friends and family. But no, these things do not happen here. It's not unique to America. In fact, according to the Crime Prevention Research Center, of the 25 worst mass shootings, those that had 15 or more fatalities, only 2 of them actually occurred in the U.S. And of the 66 highest worst mass shootings in the world, 59 of those 66 actually happened outside of the U.S. So we're going to hear this narrative that we're going to continue to hear that only this stuff happens in America, and that's not true. It's not the correlation that we always hear that more guns equals more violence. Contrary to the fact, that's why the NRA is here, to make sure that those who are empowered are law-abiding citizens. So when we do have tragedies like this, we have those who come, the good guys come, to be able to stop the bad guys with the guns.
Yeah. And you say that, yeah, you would like to see more people that are willing to do good and are trying to prevent these things have weapons, be armed themselves. My question to you is, it's one thing to have a right to bear arms and to have a pistol, on you if you want to defend yourself, or maybe a rifle in your home or a shotgun in your home or something like that. It's another thing to have an AR-15 that's capable of killing 17 people in a matter of 3 or 4 minutes. Do we really need weapons like this in the hands of civilians, a weapon with this capability?
Well, I would disagree. I would say yes, we do. In fact, we've had many people who are on the right side, again, the good guys with firearms, who have actually kept mass shootings from continuing. We see in Sutherland Springs with South Texas, when a former NRA firearms instructor used a rifle in order to stop the perpetrators. So there are time and time again where people who are on the good side. a semi-automatic, which means one shot per trigger pull. That's all that means. So yes, we've seen other people with AR-15 platforms many times who are been able to defend those who need defending. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is people who are waiting for the police to come, the good guys with guns to come. We're just saying, why don't we make sure that those who have already passed the permits and the regulations requirements to have a firearm off campus, make sure that they are able to do so on campus, so we have no more gun-free zones.
Understood. Antonia, what would you say to an idea of much stricter background checks on weapons like this, instead of, just a test that this clearly disturbed young man could get through because he had no prior criminal record? What if it was like a sit-down interview? What if it was a process, more of a process, to get your hands on a weapon that can do the kind of carnage that we saw here? It takes police a couple, 3 minutes to get to a scene. In 3 minutes, this young man shot over 30 people and killed 17. Would you agree to a much stricter route for these people to get these weapons, these types of weapons?
I think that, President Trump did a great job when addressing the fact that it's time to have a conversation about mental health and mental illness. And so I think that's what really what it needs to go to right now. We've been doing the same thing over and over again for decades. People are calling for more gun control now, but yet we still continue to see not only these fatalities, but it increasing. And so I think what President Trump has on the agenda and what Governor Scott does as well, I think is what's going to really be what we need for the future.
Yeah, well, it certainly is an issue of mental health. That is, there's no question there. Antonia, thank you so much for coming on this morning, and the debate on whether or not it is a gun issue as well will continue. And Jillian, we'll send it back to you.
Yes, it will. Thank you, Rob. Broward County, Florida officials now worried about copycats after Wednesday's shooting, revealing that threats were made at nearby schools.
We'll investigate this and charge anyone accordingly with the maximum charge we possibly could for doing something so horrific, so pathetic.
Authorities also looking into this chilling photo shared on social media threatening, quote, Florida Part 2 tomorrow. The post was traced to South Carolina, where an arrest was made. The FBI tipped off about the Florida school shooter's deadly plans months ago. A YouTuber says he contacted the feds in September after a user named Nicholas Cruz wrote on his video, quote, I'm going to be a professional school shooter. Blogger Ben Benight says local FBI agents interviewed him the very next day.
They're very responsive. They came out very polite, professional. They got the information. They got a copy of the screenshot. Wrote down, information, questions they asked me. It was disturbing that somebody would write something like that, but I never would have thought that they meant it.
The FBI says they were unable to identify the person who made that comment. Still, a lot of people have more questions about that, and we're going to talk to that YouTuber, Ben Benight, live at 6:15 Eastern, so stay tuned for that. Disturbing surveillance video showing inmates applauding the man accused of murdering a Chicago police commander. You can see them behind bars as officers walk with Shamari Leggett, the convicted felon charged with first-degree murder, denied bail in court. He's accused of gunning down Commander Paul Bauer while running from the cops. Bauer, a 31-year veteran of the force, leaves behind a wife and daughter. The inmates who clapped will likely face consequences. The flu vaccine offering little protection against the deadly virus that's sweeping the nation. The CDC releasing preliminary figures suggesting the vaccine is only 36% effective in fighting the flu and only 25% effective against the deadliest strain. The agency saying that's because it's capable of taking over a person's immune system much quicker. The CDC still urging people to get a flu shot, saying kids between 6 months and 8 years old respond to the vaccine much better than adults. It is 5:37 on the East Coast right now. A rainy day in store for us out here. We have Janice Dean live in the studio to tell us what you're in store for today. Hey, Janice.
Hi, good morning, Jillian. Yes, and a wintry mix as we head into the weekend. We've got this boundary set up. You can see it clearly on our current temperatures. Warmer ahead of the boundary and cooler behind it. And along this boundary is where we're going to see these areas of low pressure. In a lot of places, it's going to be heavy rain, especially as we head into next week. So flooding is going to be a concern for the eastern half of the country. But this weekend, the temperature temperatures are going to get cooler across the Northeast, and that means the potential for snow. So let's take a look at the future radar. This is a quick mover. It's going to be in and out Saturday, Sunday, but it is going to be bringing measurable snow across the I-95 corridor, including New York City up towards Boston and interior sections of the Northeast. So again, that's happening Saturday into Sunday, and then this will be out of here. But my other concern is, along with the snow, is the very heavy rain we're going to get across areas of the Tennessee River Valley, the Ohio River Valley, and the Mississippi River Valley over the next couple of days. So keep in tune with your forecast, and we will keep you updated. Back to you, Jillian.
All right. As always, thank you, Janice.
Of course.
It is 38 minutes after the hour. We've seen and heard the horrifying moments. 17 people were gunned down in cold blood at a Florida high school.
Oh my God!
3 students who took shelter in a dark closet are here to tell their incredible story of survival. That's next. Iran may be spying on millions of people through smartphone apps. According to a new report, they're easily available to download on Apple's iTunes Store and Google Play. The National Council of Resistance of Iran is accusing an Islamic military group of creating several spyware-enabled apps in hopes of preventing political uprisings. The report specifically citing instant messenger app Mobogram as a weaponized application monitored by the Iranian regime. Twitter will soon broadcast local breaking news in an attempt to curb the spread of misinformation. The social media giant saying they will partner with local news channels to air their coverage alongside users' timelines during big events. The company tested the feature on Wednesday, streaming live news coverage of the Florida school shooting. Twin brothers now facing major charges after allegedly enlisting students to help build bombs. Former New York City teacher Christian Toro and his twin brother Tyler pleading not guilty to unlawfully making bombs. The FBI arresting the two after a bomb-making manual was found on Christian Toro's school-issued laptop when he resigned. The feds also finding 30 pounds of explosive materials in his apartment. Police say the teacher paid at least 2 students to break apart fireworks to extract the explosive powder. Their motive remains unclear. An American flag is ripped down and replaced with an ISIS flag outside a Utah high school. But the disrespectful vandal didn't stop there. A message reading, quote, "ISIS is Comey," spray painted on the side of the school. A neighbor living across the street couldn't believe his eyes.
7 seconds. That flag represents our country. I just can't imagine anybody wanting to do anything to that flag.
The FBI says the incident was not carried out by someone in the terror group. The suspect is still unknown. Rob Schmidt live on the scene with students who barricaded themselves in a closet. That's next. We'll be right back.